Hello all, myself Vedangi and I'm a legal intern at Lexis and Company, and my another topic for today's discussion is the case analysis of Shankari Prasad versus Union of India. So basically in this case, the fundamental rights constituted in part 3 of the constitution have been known as the Magna Carta of India, and these are the basic human rights which are enforceable by the state and protected by the courts of law by issuing writs. Also, fundamental rights have always been given a great importance in the Indian Constitution and have always been analyzed, interpreted, and expanded various times to include more supplementary rights, thereby widening its scope. Though under Article 352 and Article 356, the fundamental rights can be suspended during emergency, yet whether they can be amended by Parliament is a matter of question. Also, there was a series of judgments in which the amendability of fundamental rights was considered by the Supreme Court, which started with the Shankari Prasad case. So, in this case, the constitutional validity of First Constitutional Amendment Act 1951 was challenged, which curtailed the then fundamental right to property by inserting Article 31A and 31B to the Constitution. The acts that were involved in this case were Constitutional First Amendment Act 1951, Article 31A and 31B, Article 13 Clause 2, Article 368, 379 and 392 of the Constitution 1950, and the Constitution Removal of Difficulties Order number 2 of 1952. So talking about the facts of this case, so in order to abolish the zamindari system prevalent all over India, some state legislatures took certain measures for agrarian reforms in particularly Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh by enacting Zamindari Abolition Act. And under such legislation, huge holdings of land that lay with rich zamindars was to be and redistribute them among the tenants. Also, certain zamindars feeling themselves aggrieved challenged the act in the courts of law as being unconstitutional and violative of their fundamental rights, that is, the right to property conferred on them by Part 3 of the Constitution. So the High Court at Patna held that the act passed in Bihar was unconstitutional, while the High Court at Allahabad in Uttar Pradesh and High Court at Nagpur in Madhya Pradesh upheld the validity of the legislation in the state. And the appeals from these decisions and petitions filed by some other zamindars in these courts were pending, and in the midst of all of this, Union Parliament, with a view to put an end to all the litigations, it brought forward a bill to amend the constitution, and the bill, after undergoing various amendments, was passed by the required majority as the Constitution First Amendment Act 1951. And the Amendment Act was effectual as validating the zamindari abolition laws and limiting the fundamental rights to property, and the new articles 31A and 31B were inserted in the Constitution to validate the impugned measures. And as a reaction, the zamindars basically brought the present petitions under Article 32 of the Constitution, filing a writ petition before the Supreme Court, thereby challenging the Amendment Act, stating it as unconstitutional and void. Now, talking about the legal issues that were involved in this case, so first issue was whether Parliament's amending power under Article 368 also includes the power to amend the fundamental rights guaranteed in Part 3 of the Constitution, whether an amendment of the Constitution amounts to law under Article 13 Clause 2, and whether the amendments abridging or taking away fundamental rights can be challenged under Article 13 for judicial review or not. So there were certain contentions and arguments that were put forward by the petitioner. So petitioner argued that the power of amending the constitution is designated to the two houses of the parliament and not on the parliament alone. Therefore, the provisional parliament was not competent to exercise the power under Article 379. Also, the power conferred on parliament by the provisions of the constitution, Article 379 refer only to such powers as are capable of being exercised by the provisional parliament consisting of single chamber. and the president has the power to remove difficulties in the way of actual working of the constitution under article 392, and he exercises power in order number 2 made by him on 26th of January 1950, which purports to remove difficulties in the way of amending the constitution under article 368 by adaptation under that article, which was beyond his power under article 392. Also, article 368 is like a complete code in itself, providing for procedure of constitutional amendment, and it does not provide for any amendment being made to the bill after it has been introduced in the house. Therefore, the amendment act cannot be said to have been passed in conformity with the procedure established in article 368, and the amendment act purporting to violate or take away the fundamental rights conferred by part 3 of the constitution falls within the prohibition under article 13 clause 2, and the newly inserted articles 31A and 31B seeking to make changes in article 132 and 136 in chapter 4 of part 5 and article 226 in chapter 5 of part 6 require ratification under clause B of proviso to article 368, and these articles are also ultra vires so as they relate to matters enumerated in list 2 with respect to the state legislatures, and not parliament has to make the powers to make the law. Now, talking about the respondent's argument, so respondent basically argued that whenever the constitution sought to confer any power upon parliament, it specifically mentioned parliament as the donee of the power, as in articles 2, 3, 33 and 34 and numerous other articles, but it avoided its use in article 368. Also, under article 379, provisional parliament can exercise all the powers of the parliament and therefore can act under article 368, and there is no reason to narrow the interpretation of words all the powers in article 379 by excluding amendment of the constitution from their ambit, and therefore there is like no conflict between exercising all the powers under article 379 and the prohibition under article 13 clause 2, and the article 13 clause 2 basically prohibits laws with inconsistent with the fundamental rights, and it cannot like affect the article 368 as the term law under article 13 clause 2 refers to the ordinary legislative enactments, and therefore the argument that the bill to amend the constitution should be passed as introduced without any amendments is unreasonable, and it cannot be said that the bill referred to in article 368 has to follow the procedure different from that laid down for ordinary bills in article 107 and 108. Also, article 31A and 31B are not legislative in nature and do not affect the scope of the powers of courts under article 226 and 32, and it was contended that the new articles related to land covered by item 18 of list 2 with the 7th schedule, and the state legislature alone had the power to legislate that matter. So the answer to this is the article 31A and 31B, which seek to save the certain specified laws already passed from combined operation of article 13 read with other relevant articles of part 3 of our constitution basically. So thus the parliament alone had the power of enacting them. So what was held in this case was that the Supreme Court ruled out that the power to amend the constitution under article 368 also included the power to amend fundamental rights and the term law in article 13 clause 2, and it includes only an ordinary law made in exercise of the legislative power and does not include constitutional amendment which is made in exercise of constituent power. So constitutional amendment will be valid even if it abridges or takes away any of the fundamental rights. Also, the court applies the principle of harmonic construction as there is a conflict between article 368 and article 13, and the provisions of the constitution should be interpreted in such a manner that they do not conflict with each other and there is a harmony between them. So therefore the court upheld the validity of first Constitutional Amendment Act 1951 and the petitions were dismissed with the court. So guys, that's all about my discussion on this entire case. I hope you all liked my video. If you guys have any doubt with regard to this video or to the previous one, then you can comment in the comment section. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel Lex Click. We will meet in the next video. Till then, bye.